I would go over the event tonight. We will have the senators speak, and we will have a conversation with them based on the questions we got from the audience, and then we will have the secretaries speak, and the same format there. And to introduce the senators, Senator Bernie Sanders, I'd like to introduce his campaign manager, Faiz Shakir.
Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. I'm honored to be here at ISNA, and I'm privileged to introduce my boss, Bernie Sanders. I have had the honor of traveling around the country with him. I have gotten to see his heart and his soul. I have gotten to see what is in his bones. I have seen his convictions, and I am so excited that you're going to see it in a moment yourself. And when he comes and speaks here, I think you will see a few things that I know about him. What you will see is that the policy proposals that he pushes out come from a place of a deep and abiding respect for our basic humanity. The second thing you will see is he believes powerful government leaders should care about fighting for the powerless. And you will see in someone who has a great humility and a great desire to bring people together, to forge coalitions, and believe strongly that we are strongest when we are together. And my friends, you're gonna get excited. I know you are. You're gonna get excited to hear from him directly, but I have one question for you before you hear from him. Muslims, are you going to vote? Good. I'm happy to hear that. It was a trick question, however, because the question you should have asked me is when? When am I supposed to vote? I hope you will not just vote in November of 2020. It is important that you vote to defeat Donald Trump in November of 2020, but it is almost as important that you get involved in your primaries and your caucuses, get registered, and make sure your voices are heard, know when your registration dates are, know when your caucus and primary dates are. If you don't know, feel free to email us, info@berniesanders.com. We'll take care of you. All right? My friends, I'm proud to introduce the leader who will defeat Donald Trump, who will bring us the change we so desperately seek, Bernie Sanders.
Let me thank the Islamic Society of North America for inviting me to be with you during this particularly difficult moment in American history. I am here today because, as Faz just said, I believe in the concept of solidarity and the need for all of us, no matter where we come from or what our background is, to stand together in the struggle for justice and human rights. Brothers and sisters, it is no secret that I strongly disagree with President Trump on virtually every major issue facing this country. I believe that's an understatement. I believe that health care is a human right and should be available to all people regardless of their income. Trump tried to throw 32 million people off of the health care that they had. I believe that at a time of massive wealth and income inequality, that the billionaire class and large profitable corporations should begin paying their fair share of taxes. Trump provided over $1 trillion in tax breaks to billionaires like himself and large corporations. I believe that climate change is real and an existential threat to our country and the planet. Trump thinks that climate change is a hoax. I believe that in the United States, public colleges and universities should be tuition-free, available to all, and that we should cancel all student debt. Trump has proposed major cuts in federal aid to education. I believe we need bold action to stop the mass shootings we have seen all over this country. Trump, on the other hand, is a pawn of the NRA, and on it goes. But as I have said many, many times, what disturbs me most about Donald Trump is not just his reactionary views on issues concerning the working families of our country. What disturbs me most about Trump is his very intentional and unprecedented demagogic effort to divide the American people up based on the color of our skin, our religion, our country of origin, or our sexual orientation. That is un-American. That is unacceptable. As a result, it is not surprising that we have seen in recent years a significant increase in hate crimes, white nationalism, and overt acts of racism. So let me be as clear as I can be. As President of the United States, one of my major goals will be to forcefully combat this virulent ideology of racism and hatred. Together, we will end the discrimination and the divisiveness, and we will bring our nation together based on the principles of justice, compassion, and tolerance, where we understand that diversity is a manifestation of our strength, not a weakness. As some of you may know, the issue of hatred and prejudice is very personal for me. I am the proud son of Jewish immigrants. My father came from Poland to the United States at the age of 17 to escape poverty and widespread anti-Semitism. Those in his family who remained in Poland after Hitler came to power were murdered by the Nazis. And the lesson I learned from that experience is how important it is for all of us to speak out forcefully whenever we see prejudice and discrimination. We must speak out when we have a president and an administration who believe, and I quote, that Islam hates us. We must speak out at hate crimes and violence targeted at the Muslim community and call it what it is: domestic terrorism. But let us also remember something very important about who we are as a nation. And that is to remember that in the wake of Trump's Muslim ban, thousands of non-Muslims from all walks of life rushed to airports across this country to stand in solidarity with Muslims. And further, let us remember that since Donald Trump took office, the American people have responded to Trump's anti-Muslim rhetoric by electing more Muslims to Congress and to state governments all across America. What that tells me is that the American people understand that our country is at our best when we stand together, regardless of our religious or spiritual beliefs. Brothers and sisters, I wish I could tell you that the bigotry we experience from Donald Trump is an isolated situation. It is not. All over the world, we have witnessed the rise of intolerant, authoritarian political leaders who are attacking the very foundations of democratic societies. In an age of massive global wealth inequality and economic anxiety, these demagogues exploit people's pain and fears by amplifying resentments, stoking intolerance, and fanning ethnic and racial hatreds in order to retain power. Instead of holding the wealthy and powerful accountable, they prey on the weak and the powerless. Let me very briefly say a few words about some of the many challenges we are facing globally. Since September 11th, 2001, foreign policy elites in both the Republican and the Democratic Party have advocated endless war and interventionism that have undermined the United States' moral authority, cost us thousands of lives, drained our treasury, and corroded our democracy. Today, we all understand the strategic failures of the 2003 invasion of Iraq. That war led to the deaths. Of over 4,000 brave American soldiers, as well as hundreds of thousands of Iraqi civilians. And that is why I helped lead the opposition to that war. The war in Iraq created instability around that region that we are still dealing with today and led to the rise of ISIS, a group which has indiscriminately murdered so many innocent men, women, and children. And we know that ISIS's victims have overwhelmingly been Muslims. When radical extremists conduct violence in the name of Islam, I know that the overwhelming majority of Muslims and all of us in this room condemn that violence. I also understand that many of you and Muslims all over the world live in fear of unjustified reprisals because of guilt by association. The truth is that if we are going to be successful in confronting senseless violence, we must come together and not demonize one another. Let me be clear, unlike the current president, who has an affection for authoritarian regimes around the world, I will make the promotion of democracy and human rights a priority for the United States of America. Right now, as we speak, China is engaged in a program of mass internment against Muslims in Xinjiang province. My administration will work with our allies to let Beijing know that abuse of Muslim citizens or any other group of people will damage its international and economic standing. We will not stand by and allow that to happen. I am also deeply concerned about the situation in Kashmir, where the Indian government has revoked Kashmiri autonomy, cracked down on dissent, and instituted a communications blackout. The crackdown in the name of security is also denying the Kashmiri people access to medical care. Even many respected doctors in India have acknowledged that the Indian government imposed restrictions on travel are threatening the life-saving care that patients need. India's action is unacceptable. The communications blockade must be lifted immediately, and the United States government must speak out boldly in support of international humanitarian law and in support of a UN-backed peaceful resolution that respects the will of the Kashmiri people. Brothers and sisters, as you well know, the issues that we are dealing with around the world are complicated. No one has any simple or magical answers, but credible United States leadership is desperately needed. One of the places where that leadership is most needed is to broker a lasting Israeli-Palestinian peace process. I am a strong supporter of the right of Israel to exist in independence, peace, and security. But I also believe that the United States needs to engage in an even-handed approach toward that long-standing conflict, which results in ending the Israeli occupation and enabling the Palestinian people to have independence and self-determination in a sovereign, independent, economically viable state of their own. In my view, that end result would be in the best interests of Israel, the Palestinian people, the United States, and the entire region. Right now, in another area of conflict, two corrupt, repressive, and undemocratic regimes, Iran and Saudi Arabia, are competing for regional power. One of their theaters of conflict is the horrific war in Yemen, which is now the worst humanitarian catastrophe in the world today. As you know, the United States has been backing the brutal government of Saudi Arabia, whose intervention in that civil war has led to this humanitarian crisis where millions are at risk of starvation in what could be the worst famine in modern history. Earlier this year, in a bipartisan effort, I introduced and passed, for the first time since the passage of the War Powers Act, a resolution calling on President Trump to end U.S. support for that horrific war. Sadly, but not surprisingly, Trump vetoed that resolution. The people of Yemen need humanitarian aid to rebuild their devastated economy. They do not need more bombs or more destruction. Let me conclude by saying that while I look at today's world with great concern, I am absolutely convinced that the future will belong not to those who practice bigotry, hatred, and demagoguery, but to those of us who believe in peace, justice, democracy, and human rights. As history reminds us, the antidote to hatred and division is to bring people together around a shared vision of equality and prosperity, of creating societies that work for all and not just the few. When we are in the White House together, we will begin to rebuild a sense of community in our country and understanding that we are all in this together. And when we stand together, we know that togetherness trumps divisiveness. Community trumps selfishness, and love trumps hatred. Thank you all very much.